Now, you don't immediately associate Ireland with the manufacture of motor cars. There's Fords, of course. There was the DeLorean experiment in the north of Ireland. And some of you may just possibly be old enough to remember the Shamrock car, which was manufactured here way back when. But however, you're unlikely to have heard of a County Wicklow man who has amazingly been designing and building motor cars for 40 years. His commitment in life is to put the sport into motorsport, and his work and his commitment is much appreciated by those in the world of motorsport, both at home here and indeed abroad as well.
This is David Sheane, a man with a rare occupation for this country. He makes cars. He's been involved with cars for most of his life, and his specialty is racing cars, fixing them and building them. He's one of the quiet heroes of Irish motorsport. His cars, his service and his inspiration have brought many drivers to the sport and kept them there. For years his main business was the making and repairing of agricultural equipment in his small engineering works in rural Wicklow. But today racing cars bring in most of the work. David Sheane has designed and built more than 350 racing cars, including some for overseas buyers. He built his first car as a teenager, 40 years ago, a midget car like these for grass track racing.
There was a club locally involved, and I knew some of my friends were in that, so you couldn't actually buy cars for the sport, so I had to build my own.
From midget cars, David Sheane moved on to make unusual looking cars like this mud plugger. A quarter of a century ago, he was the main manufacturer of mud pluggers for the minority interest of sporting trials. The cars aren't really made for the road, but for very awkward surfaces.
It involves mud, ditches, streams, rocks. It's very rough terrain. The competition is to drive through a series of flags which are no more than about 6 feet apart, with very sharp turns and over rough terrain. We built quite a few cars for that. The sport was in the doldrums, and we provided quite a few cars, which helped to revive mud plugging again.
After a stint enjoying mud plugging, officially known as sporting trials, David felt the call of speed. Formula V was the result.
I had ambitions to go motor racing, and there wasn't a class which I could afford, so I looked at Formula V, which is a worldwide class, and introduced it to Ireland using my own interpretation of the regulations, and it's been a great success. It's been the longest lasting and still the strongest class in the country.
In recent years, David Sheane noticed that many of the Irish clubman drivers felt a need to move beyond Formula V, and he applied himself to creating a new car and a new class for them, the more powerful but still fairly inexpensive Formula Sheane.
A lot of drivers were stuck in V. They couldn't afford to move up to the next class, and there definitely was an opening for a next step, and I felt that Formula Sheane filled that gap, and we've been proven right. It's growing. Although this is only its second year now, we have 15 cars out there.
When David set about doing it, he had it produced within 1 year. We had the prototype car out on the track within a year of even the drawings being done. So I think that was a pretty good performance.
So what do clubman drivers who moved up from Formula V to Formula Sheane think of the new car?
There's a huge difference. These are really quick. These are much quicker car, and they're just a huge amount of fun.
The Formula Sheane race class is now in its second year, with up to 15 cars on the grid. One of the most enthusiastic supporters of Class Sheane is its coordinator, Andy Kavanagh. Today is a test day at Mondello Racetrack in County Kildare, and Andy is preparing for a few laps in his pride and joy, his very own Formula Sheane Rover.
I came into this class because, like most of the other guys in it, we're all clubmen racers. We all have day jobs to go to as well, and not endless budgets. So the biggest benefit about this class was that we had Everything in the cars is identical, so the running costs are very low.
The car is powered by a sealed Rover engine. Drivers aren't allowed to alter the engine, even if they have the money and the expertise to do so. Andy believes that this makes Formula Sheane a very fair class.
The engine and the gearbox are both sealed units, so they come from David, we put them in the car, and there's virtually nothing that you can do to them. The brakes are all identical, so really the only thing that you can change in the car are the suspension settings. So really it's down to talent of driving and also the setup ability, the engineering ability of the driver as well. It also means that driver talent will out, so the best man wins. So it's a very fair class and very economic class.
It was very important that the car looked well. We tried to get the mini Formula One look as closely as possible, but cost obviously was a major factor also, so minor compromises, but I think the package has worked out very well.
Formula V's cost €10,000 and Formula Sheanes, like these ones on the track here, cost $18,500 plus VAT. Subsequent running costs are relatively low for racing cars. This is partly due to the nature of the after-sales service provided by Sheane Cars. On test and race days, David Sheane arrives at the track with a full workshop and spare parts for accidents, repairs and adjustments. Already today, there have been 2 accidents.
George here had a little bit of an accident and he's bent a wishbone and a few other bits and pieces, so I'm just going to take them off now and replace them. It's a very bad day, then we can't get the driver back out within 2 or 3 hours. You know, anything we need, we carry with us.
There's no other racing formula you could be in where you could get this type of service. You couldn't. You're most of the racing formulas you're on your own totally. Here you've got the support of David Sheane and the others in getting the car back on the track.
Safety would be my first priority. Most of the drivers are totally amateur and they have a job to go to on Monday morning, so it's important that if they do have an accident, which can happen, that they can step out of it unscathed.
The key to safety in David Sheane's cars is the design of the chassis. The cars, including the chassis, are built at Sheane Cars workshop in County Wicklow by a small team of local engineers.
The design of the chassis, the triangulation of certain bars in it, the way that the bars will kind of follow a line throughout the chassis to transfer an impact from the front to the rear of the chassis without encroaching in on the driver himself. In the event of a frontal accident, the front axle would take up quite a lot of the impact, and the chassis then looks after the driver who sits here.
We do a lot of, probably more in-house work on the cars than most manufacturers. A lot of the bigger manufacturers would farm out things like suspension parts, but we have to do all that in-house. It helps to keep the costs down and also helps with supply. You don't have, if you run out of parts, well, it's your own fault.
David Sheane's contribution doesn't stop at making and selling his cars. His follow-up service on testing and race days is central to his business and to Irish motorsport. Here, David helps a young Formula V driver with an engine problem.
We have a slight carburation problem. Hopefully it's just a matter of adjusting the mixture on the carbs. It's very important to, as in any business, to look after your customers. If your customers are happy, well, you'll always be busy.
It's great help and inspiration as well, so we all look up to him in the club and we always go to him looking for advice and a bit of help if we need it. He's always there to do that for you.
To David, it's paramount that he has 15 cars on the grid tomorrow. No matter what it takes, he's got to have the 15 cars out, ready and racing. Without David Sheane, I wouldn't be able to take part in motorsport.
He actually keeps all the cars going all the time for us, and if we're in any difficulty, he just helps us out, you know. Now, I do a lot of maintenance on it myself, but when I don't have the time, David will give me a dig out on it. He's been very supportive, well, to me he has anyway, and he's actually kept me racing the last nearly 8-9 years now, so I owe him a lot.
everybody kind of gravitates toward David's when there's a problem. Apart from the guys who are really well, kitted out and they have their own garages and they know what they're doing. It would be hard to minimise his contribution to keeping cars going on the tracks.
With tributes like this, it's no surprise to hear that David Sheane's company, Sheane Cars, are said to be the people who put the sport into motorsport. David certainly prefers the amateur spirit at the grassroots to the commercial environment at the pinnacle of the sport.
I'm a Formula One enthusiast, but I do truly feel that the money spent in it is immoral, and the actual grassroots sport is still a sport, and it's very important to keep it that way. We provide sport at as low cost as possible. You've only one Michael Schumacher, but you've 1,000 Joe Soaps out there who just go out to enjoy their sport.